Mangwanani Mwalilepo Vukenjani Class Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwyn, Mberi and Glen-Nora Tjipura on Friday, the 10th of November. How are you, Glen?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm all right. The weekend has arrived.
How are the preparations for the other thing?
Well, there's a lot coming along, you know what I mean? The cattle are gathering.
Is the cattle gathering?
Yes.
Okay. If you need one more, just tell me.
By all means, all cattle welcome.
Well, let's take a look at what you can expect in today's broadcast. At least 16 injured in opposition protests as tensions rise ahead of presidential election in Madagascar. Much like Zimbabwe, Arab Spring's birthplace, Tunisia proposes shutting down civil society. Liberia heads to competitive runoff between President Weah and former VP Boakai. We'll also be crossing over to Mike Sichula, who'll be filling us in on the latest news in Zambia. Do stay tuned for this and more news on Africa Good Morning.
Welcome to What's Cooking, where culinary passion meets expert insights.
Somebody must really want to cook and want to cook good food.
Immerse yourself in the bustling world of professional kitchens as top chefs create mouth-watering dishes. Join us for in-depth interviews as our host explores the experiences and expertise of our guest chefs. Don't miss out. Tune in to What's Cooking on NTV every Friday at 2100 hours and let the culinary adventure begin.
Let's get into our top stories. At least 16 people were injured in new demonstrations that turned violent at the Stade des Barreias Antananarivo, Madagascar's capital. Among the injured were 4 policemen. The latest incident comes as Madagascar reels from tensions ahead of the November 16 presidential election. Wednesday's umpteenth march by the opposition coalition Collective des Candidats saw the opposition lawmaker for Antananarivo's 5th constituency, Festra Ralam Botha Fimbolo Iona, arrested for questioning by the police. The protests by the coalition of opposition candidates taking part in the upcoming elections are being held to denounce what they have called an illegitimate electoral process. Now, 13 candidates are running for next week's election, including the incumbent president, Andry Rajoelina.
Now swinging over to South Africa, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has authorized the deployment of 3,300 army personnel to help combat illegal mining activities. Ramaphosa's office said in a statement on Thursday, the deployment of the South African National Defence Force, which is expected to cost about 492 million rand, is aimed at maintaining law and order under Operation Prosper, Vincent Magwenya, Ramaphosa's spokesperson, said in the statement. Now, the SANDF was previously deployed in 2019 to the Western Cape province to fight gang violence under the same operation.
Now, apparently taking a leaf from Zimbabwe, Tunisia intends to effectively ban civil society as President Kais Saied continues the crackdown on free speech in the birthplace of the Arab Spring. Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa, at the end of his first term in office last year, signed the patriotic bill viewed by human rights defenders and political rivals as a brutal assault on civil space. It was to be followed by its infamous cousin, the Private Voluntary Organization Amendment Bill, giving the government power to regulate or ban non-governmental organizations which are deemed hostile to the regime. Now, the law was not passed. However, in the current parliament, Mnangagwa and the ruling ZANU-PF intend to pass it into law. 10 parliamentarians, this is now in reference to Tunisia, loyal to Saied, proposed the Basic Law number 027/2023, which is also related to organization of associations. Now, the new law is at the office level and it moves to the committee stage next before finally heading to the plenary session level.
In our next story, Liberia heads to competitive runoff between President Weah and former VP Boakai. Liberians will vote on Tuesday in a runoff election between President George Weah and former Vice President Joseph Boakai after a fiercely fought first round in which neither was able to score over 50% of the vote to secure an outright victory. Former soccer star Weah led the first round, gaining 43.83% of the vote, and Boakai had 43.44%. Now, the razor-thin margin between them and the absence of a strong third candidate means the second round will also be very competitive.
Now, with over 10,000 lives lost, including 192 healthcare workers in Gaza and 89 UNRWA staff, which is the highest toll in a single UN operation in history, the unfolding crisis in Gaza, described as more than a humanitarian emergency, has reached catastrophic proportions. Now, of particular concern is the plight of 1.1 million women and girls, which prompted UNFPA representative Dominic Allen to express his deep concerns.
The message from the UN is clear. From our Secretary General to the heads of agencies who are before you today, humanitarian ceasefire now. Before at the outset, I also want to pay respect and condolences to the over 10,000 lives that have been lost, and that includes the 192 healthcare workers in Gaza and 89 UNRWA staff. It's the highest loss of life for the United Nations in one operation in our history. Now, what we've seen over the last month is more than a humanitarian crisis, it's a catastrophe. And for UNFPA, we're deeply concerned for the 1.1 million women and girls in Gaza right now.
We're going to take a short break before Mike Sichula joins us with the latest news stories from Zambia.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
We are so excited to be kickstarting your morning with entertainment. Everything was happening during this past weekend.
Yes.
Exciting news.
Wow, no, she was killing it already.
In my opinion, I don't see anything wrong with him serving the full term.
As well as keeping you informed on the issues that you need to know happening in and around our country.
Now getting into our news from Zambia, President Hakainde Hichilema is among other heads of state attending the first ever Saudi Africa Summit. Here to bring us this story and more news from Zambia is Mike Sichula. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, and Africa, good morning. Yes, indeed, the summit taking place in Saudi Arabia is themed a promising partnership. And according to President Hichilema, he says this aligns well with his vision of fostering development through sustainable alliances with foreign investors and the private sector. So his visit, according to what he has said, is that he aims to take advantage of this summit to position the country's interest in attracting foreign direct investments from Saudi Arabia. So the president has also emphasized that his visit to Saudi Arabia during this summit, he will look at emphasizing on attracting investment that will bring value addition to raw materials that Zambia is endowed with. Then he also said that on the sidelines of the summit, he will also engage in bilateral discussions with the Royal Highness of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to see to it that what the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has done and has been doing in the past few years is enhanced going forward under his administration. So it is something that a number of Zambians are also expecting that the President Hichilema could use this summit to lobby for cheaper petroleum products from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
All right, now as we move on, what is the update on the impeachment motion of the Speaker of the National Assembly?
Yeah, so according to the mover of the motion, Bino Mpundu, who is an independent member of parliament, he feels the Speaker of the National Assembly, Neri Muti, is biased in terms of favoring the governing members of parliament. And according to him, he says that does not align well with the tenets and guidelines of the National Assembly. So he has written to the National Assembly uh, uh, because there has been information that has come forth that some members of parliament who had appended their signatures in the motion to impeach the speaker have allegedly withdrawn their support to the motion, and is seeking a response from the clerk of the National Assembly to find out whether that is true. And that is the letter that he has written to the clerk of the National Assembly. So the parliament has not responded to this, and it is expected that this motion may not go through because of story of allegations that some members of parliament have put out, and also about 17 members of the opposition PF have been suspended for at least 30 days. So meaning the number of MPs, if this motion was to be tabled before Parliament, may not be favoring it passing so that the Speaker can be impeached. So it is something that may not see the end of at the end of the day.
Now, on a rather interesting note, some women are divorcing their husbands in order to benefit from the social cash transfer. What's going on there?
It is something that has caught the attention of the traditional leadership in Chief Chikwanda's area of Mpika district, which is in Muchinga province. So stories have emerged that some women in the chiefdom are divorcing their husbands in order to benefit from the social cash transfer. So this is the money that government gives vulnerable but viable individuals across the country. It is not a lot of money, but these stories, women are trying to create an impression that they are vulnerable once they divorce their husbands, with a view that they can get part of this money and put this money into different business opportunities. So a number of civil society organizations have called for investigations and also to establish whether it is the real reason that women are divorcing their husbands, or there is another reason behind the high rate of divorce cases in the Pika district. So a number of organizations are trying to establish how this can be true and what can be done in order to prevent such vices from happening.
Understandably so. Now, CAF has approved Ndola's Levy Mwanawasa Stadium to host Zambia's World Cup qualifier match against Congo next weekend. Tell us more.
Yeah, so the Football Association of Zambia has received conditional approval from CAF for the Levy Mwanawasa Stadium to host the World Cup qualifier against Congo Brazzaville on 17th November. So first General Secretary Ruben Kamanga made the announcement on Facebook saying that FAS will now need to work on the dressing room, playing field, and substitute benches if the stadium is to be certified by CAF to host international matches. So following this announcement, government has since moved in to install new substitute benches, and also they have been working on the playing staff so that it becomes standard. As you can see there, those are some of the new substitute seats that the government is installing, because the danger was that if Zambia did not have any stadium to host World Cup matches, they had an option to either play in South Africa or even Malawi, depending on where the affordability of the stadium could be and how that can enable Zambians to go and cheer their team. So this development of CAF giving FAS this approval, it is a boost because, as you know, Zambia is chasing for their maiden World Cup appearance, and playing behind home fans is something that any football team wants for their trust support in order to gain a qualification.
Yeah, I have to say you might have touched the feelings of Namibians with that statement there, because we are currently playing all our national team games in South Africa. So kudos to you, Zambia, and we're hoping some of that wafts our direction. Thank you very much, Mike, for bringing us the news stories from the real Africa.
Thank you very much, Ashwyn and Glen-Nora. Have a blessed week, and everyone behind the production of this edition. Thank you very much.
And a blessed weekend we shall have. Let's take a look at the weather predictions.
We are so excited to be kickstarting your morning with entertainment. Everything was happening during this past weekend.
Yes.
Exciting news.
Wow, no, she was killing it already.
In my opinion, I don't see anything wrong with him serving the full term.
As well as keeping you informed on the issues that you need to know happening in and around our country.
Let's get into our economic news stories. The Saudi Fund for Development will sign agreements worth 2 billion riyals, which is $533 million, with African countries. Saudi Finance Minister Mohammed Al Jadaan said on Thursday during the Saudi Arab African Economic Conference in Riyadh. Now, Saudi Investment Minister Khalid Al Falih later said at the same conference the kingdom's over $700 billion wealth fund, the Public Investment Fund, will make some game-changing investments in Africa. Saudi Energy Minister Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman, also at the conference, signed preliminary agreements with African countries, including Nigeria, Senegal, Chad, Ethiopia, on energy-related cooperation.
Now, in our next story, December by-elections in Zimbabwe will cost the country, now without a key former founder for the polls, 95 million rands, according to the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. It comes at a time when its treasury will already be strained thanks to civil servant bonuses. Zimbabwe is due to replace 15 parliamentarians and several local councillors recalled by a renegade self-proclaimed Secretary General of the main opposition, the Citizens Coalition for Change.
All right, those have been our economic news stories. We swing over to the indicators just before Ari brings us the sport.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, and starting off with cricket news first. It's a Cricket World Cup continuing, and it is England that's back on winning ways. England's been battling in the World Cup. They were last on the list of 10 teams, and they're the defending champions, so not a good performance in the 2023 World Cup in India for England at the moment. But India, in their second last game, they beat the Netherlands by 160 runs, so they're back on winning ways, but they will not make the semi-finals, and they have one more game to play in the tournament. They have a big say on what's going to happen in terms of who's going to be the last team that's in the semi-finals. That is because England will play against Pakistan. That will be on Sunday. Pakistan, one of 3 teams that can still make the semi-finals together with New Zealand and Afghanistan. So it is an important game coming up on Sunday against Pakistan for England. What happened against the Netherlands, it was Ben Stokes that showed his form, and he was a big influence when England won the previous World Cup. Ben Stokes scored 108 runs off just 84 deliveries, and it's England that scored 339 for the loss of 9 wickets. That's in their allotted 50 overs. Also, David Malan, he is from South Africa, actually born in Paarl in Cape Town, and David Malan scored 87 runs from just 74 deliveries, so a good performance with the bat from England. Then Rashid took 3 wickets for 54 runs, so that was for Netherlands only to reach 179 all out. So the next game, or the last game in the World Cup for England, will be then on Sunday when they play against Pakistan. On to soccer news, football news. It is a Champions League action, and a big game, controversial game that was played between Manchester United and Copenhagen. It was Copenhagen that won in the end that game by 4-3. Lots of controversy, lots of things to talk about in that game. It was Manchester United leading 2-0, but then they received a red card. They had a massive influence in the game. It was Marcus Rashford that received a red card. That's quite debated at the moment if it was meant to be a red card, but anyway, he did receive that, and lots of action through the game. There were 2 penalties, also a spectator on the field, but in the end, a late goal by a 17-year-old, and it was Copenhagen winning that by 4-3. Makes it difficult now for Manchester United to reach the last 16. A team that is in the last 16 that didn't have any problems, that was Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich, they reached the last 16 thanks to Harry Kane scoring 2 goals, and they beat Galatasaray, and they beat them by 2-0. Harry Kane was successful in goals in the 80th and 86th minutes, so Bayern Munich through to the last 16. Other games that was played in the Champions League, a good win for Arsenal, beating Seville by 2-0. So Arsenal continuing the good form that they also show in the English Premier League. And then Real Madrid, they too strong for Sparta Braga, and they beat them by 3-0. So that is action from the Champions League football. And to conclude today's international sports news, it is boxing news, and a big fight that the boxing world's been hoping to see. Everybody hope that it can happen in February, and that is between Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. They're the 2 heavyweight boxers that hold all the belts at the moment, and it's been scheduled for 23 December, the boxing fight between Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. But it was Tyson Fury that had a tough fight against Francis Ngannou, and he just won it on a split decision. It was the debut actually in heavyweight boxing for Francis Ngannou, but he's very experienced in UFC cage fighting. He was the heavyweight champion there, and it was a split decision win for Tyson Fury. It seems like that fight will hopefully now take place in February next year, and it is a talk that it will be in Saudi Arabia. Lots of millions of dollars offered for those 2 fighters to fight. It will be a unification fight, and the winner of that fight will hold all the boxing belts in world boxing. So that is Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. That's international sports news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk international sport again tomorrow. Goodbye.
All right, let's get into the highlights from this morning's broadcast. Madagascar, at least 16 injured in opposition protests as tensions rise ahead of presidential election. South African president deploys army to tackle illegal mining. And Saudi Arabia to sign deals worth over $500 million with African nations.
And with that, we've come to the end of our broadcast. Thank you for joining us this Friday morning. From me, Glen-Nora.
And me, Ashwyn Mberi. Looking forward to seeing you on Monday. Suraj Ranaka.